Ready for spicy hot takes? So I'm super grateful to Russ and all the JawnCon folks for inviting us back again this year. You know, we got a lot of really positive feedback from you guys last year. We had staff and attendees alike come up and ask if we were going to run it again this year. So here we are. I've got Bruce back with us again this year. We've got Narfi, and we've also got Kelly/Gwydia and myself, Guardian Cosmos. So we're here to pull all of your topics that some of you were nice enough to submit during Reg out of a bag and talk about the things that you asked us to. For those of you who are new to this panel, the goal is to be completely unadulterated. Bruce, that means you get to be mean. Be meaner than you were last year.
Wow.
You were restrained.
It was early.
It's a day that ends in Y. This ain't hard.
So I hope you guys enjoy. And so without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and pick the first topic. These are at random, by the way. We didn't do any magic here.
What's in the bag?
I did not.
All the good things are in the bag. You need some paper. The index cards are on the... So apparently there's last minute hot takes that got added. Oh, so we're starting off extra spicy, and I know that at least one person on this panel has had this conversation once already. Cert or degree or self-taught? Which should you do, why, and what do you think is important? So I'm going to start with Bruce because he's not paying attention.
So it's funny because I think the answer to this has changed in the last few years. It's a lot harder to get jobs in the industry than it has been at any point since before cybersecurity existed. And I saw Leslie Carhart posted a thing the other day that was like, you know, going to a cybersecurity boot camp is basically malfeasance at this point because so many of them are just like weird charlatans doing bullshit things and taking a bunch of money, and you're not going to get a job, and why even fucking try and whatever. And so I think the self-taught route for a lot of trades is still an option, but it is less and less an option for us today. Certs, I've been sour on them a lot, and I'm more sour on them now than I ever have been. I don't think that they're going to open any doors. I think a formal education and understanding how to think critically and act on your own is probably one of the most valuable things you can do, at least in this day and age. I am a college dropout and was fortunate to like take this journey before that was a fucking thing. But I think if I were to start fresh today, I'd be like, go to school.
Yeah, I mean, quick show of hands of the four of us, you know, how many of us actually have degrees? I think.
Like relevant degrees?
A degree.
Okay, any degree.
All right, so we're 2 for 2 out of this one.
Well, we're 2 for 4, which shows that Cosmos does not have a degree.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to call that out from a math perspective.
And I mean, and neither you nor I's degrees are what you would call technically relevant.
I mean, chemistry is not technically relevant.
Right.
I mean, there's math involved.
My degree's in skiing and fucking around, yes.
Love that.
All right, so my fellow degree holder here, that's not my fellow, but the other one.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting because I have pretty much the most non-traditional way in here. I came through being a therapist and a lawyer, and here that's a story for another time. So I can say that a degree matters, but not for the content. Just people won't look at you. You know, I work at hiring at my company, and the frickin' thing will just kick you if you don't have a degree, unless you know somebody on the inside. That sucks. But if we're talking about things like a CISP, those things are also, unfortunately, like gold, but for the same reason. But I've been seeing, like in our hiring, it's more like mid-career. It's, you know, things like that. If you've been around for like 10 years and for some reason you can't get traction, well, like our group said, let's all get drunk and get CISPs, which happened for several of us. Kudos, shout out to Dave Collins. And it worked. He got to the next step. So this is a long way of saying you need a degree in something because the robots will kick will probably kick your application out. And if you were at a block mid-career and you just keep going against people who have these cute little letters after their name, reality says you might have to deal with it.
What both of them just said, but I will say that half the time, more than half the time, I enjoy working with the self-taught people better. But career-wise, yeah, get the degree, get the letters. But the self-taught people tend to have just, I don't know if it's a better, but it's a different outlook on things that I enjoy.
As a self-taught person, I'm going to go with, I think that it's self-taught people tend to be more motivated, right? Because that's what kind of spurred us into, I don't want to speak for everyone, right? But for, in my case, right, that's definitely what got me where I was. I was interested in something, so I just kept learning a new thing. And that passion, that interest is what allowed me to be good at the thing, because it stopped being about, scoring on a test or just getting the job, and it was genuine interest, right? A lot of you can probably relate to some degree to that because you're here, right? This is not a mandatory event that someone at work probably sent you to. This is I'm interested. I want to hear what people have to say. I want to hear topics. I want to meet like-minded individuals. I want to keep learning, right? And I think that's something that you don't always see as much of when there's a grade attached to it. Is it's really hard to keep that passion. It's like, when you have a hobby, when you have something you truly love, doing that as your J job always sounds like a great idea until you do it, because it's really hard to love the thing you do and do that thing every day and have to do that thing, and it's no longer an option to do the thing.
Yeah, and I think the reality is like there's no entry level jobs in the industry right now. Like it's mid level or above. It's very hard to get like I have no experience. I'm going to get a job in cybersecurity. That's not a thing anymore. And given the tooling, going in the front door and applying with a resume, whatever, is wicked hard, right? Because like so many job postings, like they go up, everything hits it all at once. There's 2,000 submissions in a day. They take it down and they're like, oh shit, we got to dig through this. And they're just going to use some tooling, AI, ML, whatever to dig through and figure it out. None of that results in jobs, right? At the very least, self-taught and getting a degree force you to interact with other human beings. And that's usually a path to a job, right? I know a person who knows a person who's looking for whatever, and you get it there. You can buckle down and get a cert all on your goddamn lonesome, right? You can get the book, you can take the online courses, you can sit in your dark room, you can do all your shit, you can get real smart. And at the end of the day, it doesn't prove to me that you know how to do a goddamn thing. And I have a very hard time seeing past that. Plus, I'll never see your resume if all it is a litany of certs. So I think, the reality is if the purpose of getting this is to get a job, then doing things that you interact with other humans is the best possible path today to get the job.
I mean, I think that makes a great point for a quick survey. Who in the room does or participates in the hiring process?
Or participates
All right.
in.
For all of you, I want you to keep your hands up for a minute. Put your hand down if you actually look at a resume before you interview a candidate. 9 out of 10 times. All right. I want everyone to look around and see how many people still have hands up, right? I'll be honest, like I hire people all the time. I hire for my company, for other companies. I help in the hiring process. And most times I'd rather talk to a candidate before I look at the resume. I find that for me, the resume is going to probably bias me towards that person in a lot of ways. And it's more about how can they think and can they actually answer the question, especially, today it's so easy to get a resume made and make it sound good to get through a system.
I have a thought on that. Um, and I used to YOLO like all my interviews, like just fucking sit down and talk to people. And it turns out that actually creates an immense amount of bias in the interview process. If you don't have structure, and I've had a whole 180 on how I think about interviewing and talking to people. It starts. It's a long conversation about diversity in this industry, but it starts with like, where do you source your candidates from, and make sure you're not sourcing from the same schools, the same places, and a bunch of people that look like you for starters. And then secondarily, how do you interview them? And then how do you use an appropriate yardstick to measure them to find the best candidate for the job? And a lot of that is based on structure and consistency through the interview team and the interview process. It allows you to make consistent decisions and get good people from all spectrums, all walks of life onto your team. And it's a challenge, right? I will say in big companies, it was easy because I had like 1,000 freaking applicants for a job. At a small company, I might get none, and I have to go hunting.
And you had a bunch of different people who could share the interviewing with you, so you
Yeah.
didn't always have to interview someone who looked just like you. But at a small company, that's hard.
It can be a lot harder because you might all like sample size of 3 or something, and you might all be basically the same person already. Yeah.
And just to bounce off of this, the lack of entry-level jobs and how people think, nobody should think that they're above a help desk job. Some of the best people in the industry that I know started off as a help desk, and you do that for a year. It is the best education in user stupidity you will ever get. Oh, this couldn't possibly be a security issue. No one would ever do, yes, they will. And you spend a year on a help desk and you'll know that inherently.
How did you even fit a hoagie in there? What the actual fuck were you doing?
All right. So, in the true nature of the chaoticness of this panel, our lovely chaos coordinators told me there are 2 topics that I'm mandatorily going to pull here. And so I'm going to expect great things because she happens to be married to one of my panelists here. But you just know, right? So, hot take: bills of material are useless, especially when no one does data science completely in the first place.
Oh, fuck. All
I-
right.
I think
know
we've
whose
had some
topic this is.
authorship validation there. Like,
This is bad considering the first mentor that when I did my proving ground talk for B-Sides Vegas that kind of launched me into here was Alan Friedman. So
He's here, right? Or he's going to be here tomorrow.
I don't know, but if you're
we
watching,
can have
whatever,
a puppet be Alan Friedman. Hello, I'm Alan Friedman.
Alan Friedman.
Anyone have some
Alan
glitter?
Friedman is the father of S-bombs. He wrote the Biden executive order, et cetera, whatever. So I'm not saying he's the only person, but he's the dude who is most closely associated. So I'm going to start with that and say S-bombs are like any other fucking tool or framework or anything else. If you're doing the data science behind it, if you're using it in a meaningful way, if you're actually keeping up and updating things, they're a great idea. Just like knowing everything that's in your pantry is a good idea if there's a recall on a can of corn. But like any tool, if you just YOLO it, no, it's not going to get you one step further than you are now.
I think it's really about company maturity level, whether or not that's actually going to be useful to you. If you have done all of the other things up to an S-bomb, then doing an S-bomb is icing. It's great. It's going to be useful to you. But if you as an organization are not mature enough to consume that, I see Bruce making a face, and I know he's got a hot take on that disagreement, but...
So I like Alan a lot. I think he's a good guy, and I'm not here to slag on S-bombs, but but I will. I don't think that S-bomb is the pinnacle of like, I'm mature and then I can consume S-bombs. Actually, I mean, if you step back and think about the problem you're trying to solve, it's basically like, what the hell have I built the software out of? How have I constructed it? Is it constructed with trustworthy pieces and parts and that kind of thing? And it's very focused on the artifacts, right? Here are artifacts I can measure, the exact things that are in the thing. Now, the reality is what matters, I think, more is how you built it with those things. And let's take NPM as an example. There's been some, I'll say, very high profile compromises of NPM attacks recently that have impacted a whole bunch of people all at once, right? Why? Because the current state of the art for fucking front end web development is just YOLO sec of like, hey, I need a weird JavaScript thing to tell me if this thing's a number, so I'm going to import it from NPM, because God help me, I can't do it in any other way, right? And I'm going to import it in real time. And whatever version exists at that moment in time is the version I'm going to run. It's psychotic, right? And at the end of the day, I want to see a company that actually has like a stopgap that says, I'm going to use NPM versions that are at least 72 hours old, because it'll give the industry some time to find the weird shit that got backdoored and stop it, because we actually are pretty good at finding it, right? And so there are processes behind the scenes of how I use the software and how I integrate it that I'm far more interested in than the specifics of the version that they're using at any given moment in time, period.
I don't disagree with anything you said. I think my comment on maturity level is definitely around the fact that most people just can't consume it. They don't have the team capability to use or do effectively what you're talking about well, right? And
Right.
There are definitely...
Capstone to maturity is not maturity itself.
Yeah, I think it's just having the staff or the luxury of the staff or the cycles to do that. There are so many other things I think you need to do first. But I would agree empirically with the statement that, like, you should know what's going in your damn soup before you cook the stew.
I like mystery soup. But, I mean, sure, maturity level, but it's just everybody's treating it as another checkbox. Nobody's doing the data science behind it. I mean, I'm working on something right now where we have to, one of the customers is the Department of the Navy. They're like, oh no, we have to have this, we have to have this, we have to have this. I could write that, I've got Samba version 0.1 included in there somewhere, and nobody's going to call me on it because no one's looking at it. It's just another checkbox, even at the maturity level of the Navy.
I mean, that implies that there's maturity level there.
I mean, fair. But
I mean, how many Govy people? I know we have Govy adjacent here. How many people in the room right now have worked for a government or pseudo government agency before, consulting or otherwise? I see a bunch of hands going up. I know I heard someone say we're playing Spot the Fed. I mean, this con was founded by a former Fed. So I think that there's probably a great deal of agreement here that, while we would like to think that our government is very mature, maybe not so much as we might want. And I won't make anyone own up to that one.
So just a quick aside, I was talking to a CISO the other day that's going through a fundraising round, like a B round fundraise. So, $100 million kind of investment's going to come in. And the investor lawyers were asking for was effectively an S-bomb from them. But what's interesting is they solve for a different problem. It isn't, the lawyers don't give a shit about the cyber problem. Like, that's a you problem, not them. They care about license risk. Right? It's like, are you using anything that is a license that you're going to get screwed for? We're going to owe a lot of money on, and that's what they cared about. But the underlying technology ended up being the same. They're like, I can go get some S-Bond tools from Black Duck or something, and just like boop and barf this manifest out, and then some lawyer has to go dig through it all. Yeah, the commentary up front is the only people that care about it are the lawyers, actually. And they care about it for a completely different reason than we would think they would.
Yeah, it's not entirely about security. It's about, are we getting sued? It's always where's the money coming from, right?
Why I don't practice anymore.
That's right. We have a former lawyer.
You're just that good. You
you're a
could
current
stop
lawyer.
practicing.
No, I'm still licensed.
It's like a Marine. You're never not a lawyer once you're a lawyer once. You're always a lawyer.
I'm a recovering attorney. It's fine.
Recovering attorney. I like that term. All right. We have one other topic that our chaos coordinator has asked me to read off. Compliance frameworks only exist to keep orgs in assessment loops. They're only relevant because no one knows how to actually reason with ROI and security ROI. It's the same question in disinformation. Okay, go ahead, Bruce. I know we could argue it.
Christ. No, I think it's a there is nuance.
There's nuance. It's similar but different.
A lot of the same topics.
But the compliance frameworks are what you make of it, right? Like, so I've been to CISO a handful of times, and I know a shitload of them, and they all have different views on this. And some of them are, to Narfi's point, like, it's just a box checking exercise. Like, I do these things to check the boxes to make sure we're okay. We can go through it all. My personal view is always like, hey, I can use these things as a foundation to actually make myself stronger. You just kind of have to read through the compliance framework and see what like underlying things they were trying to accomplish. And I'm like, if I build a reasonably good security program, it should meet 95% of my compliance issues. There's always some like rando bullshit thing you had to do just to check the box, but I prefer it to be like 2 or 3% of my program and not like 95% of my program. But that's a philosophical thing. And other people were just like, if I check all the boxes and all the compliance frameworks, I have a secure program. So that's what I'm going to do. And it's hard to argue with it. You're like, yeah, probably. We'll probably have built the same thing with a very different motivation in the process.
I have similar views. I think that a compliance framework is nice. I don't think being compliant with the framework itself makes you secure, but I think it's definitely a great weapon in your toolbox if that's the thing that your organization cares about, and if you can tie something back to that. I used to work for a healthcare company, and I remember it literally took getting in a room with one of the doctors that made this medical device and saying, you're gonna kill someone, to get them to change something, right? And it's about finding where is the pain point, where is the money in the org, and sometimes it's compliance because someone cares about what their cybersecurity insurance waiver is going to cost them. And if they're compliant with XYZ framework and they can check that box, suddenly you're saving $1 million a year on your insurance plan.
A lot of the times, and to bring the lawyers back into it, a lot of the times the compliance framework is a useful shovel to hand to the lawyers to get them to beat non-technical management types into spending money and actually getting you a decent program.
And this is a lot of why people, hire consultants. I not speaking for my company or anything like that, but it's true. I mean, how many times have you been yelling at your management, we have to do this, we have to do this, we have to do this? Then they get an outside consultant or an attorney who says, we have to do this, and all of a sudden the money rains down. that is no, you don't do that at all. I don't do that. Never. It's never happened.
What are you talking about? None of us
None of
consultants
us
on
have
the
ever done
stage
that.
who in their
So, I
consulting
mean,
role have ever done such
right.
a thing. Why would you accuse me of such things?
Yeah, but still, to Bruce's point, you get to the same place for the wrong reasons, or it doesn't matter what the reasons are. You get there, hopefully.
Yeah. I love consultant red tape cutting ability. You got about 6 months typically in my experience before it starts wearing off and they start treating you like an employee. But that first 6 months, anything you say can sometimes just be law and get someone to spend money. So if you're a consultant, it's a great thing to know that you've got that time clock. And I love going to stakeholders and companies I'm working with and being like, hey, listen, what are the things that you've been trying to do or that you want to do? Let me just regurgitate them for you, because I want to help you achieve your goal. And that's really collaboration, right? And I think that's one of the things a lot of security folks fail at. I was having this conversation with another consultant the other day is how do you collaborate with the business unit? How do you get people to want to do security, right?
Higher PhD on exactly that issue, and the number one capstone is go in being collaborative, because usually, how many times have you been at work and somebody's like, you're getting a consultant in to do something, you roll your eyes, you're like, oh mother God, why are these fuckers in here? They don't know anything. Well, if those people are intelligent enough to come up to you and the first question they ask you is, what do you need? Then you're fine. If they don't, if they do come at you adversarial, unfortunately, this is the point where it's probably more useful for you to pretend to eat a little crow and say, can you help me get what I need? Which is bullshit, but at least makes the time a little more worth it.
Yeah, I would say we're definitely past the point of, the era of security where it was, cool, found the exploit, you're bad, right? But no one tells you why you were bad, right? Or how to fix the bad. And that collaborative approach is really meeting in the middle, right? You're bad and you should feel bad, right?
That's next weekend.
That's, yeah. Shameless plug, if you're a local, there's a PumpCon next weekend. No, 2 weeks.
2 weeks. I should know this. I run it. Help run it. It's 2 weeks from now.
Anyway.
Close. You were close.
Just
You're
time
gonna
is wibbly
pregame.
wobbly, timey-wimey, All right.
People
I
do
don't
show up for conferences on the wrong time. I've seen people like a whole week ahead of time.
So
show
we're
up
going
and
to
be
keep talking until someone yells at us to
Whoops.
stop talking.
Got me at the bowling alley a week early.
Ooh, I have one that all of you are going to have strong opinions about. Isn't that the point of this panel? If you don't know networking, you shouldn't be in security.
Fuck you. Fuck you. You know what? I'm not terribly familiar with networking. You know who are? The 5 people who work with me and work for me who are really fucking brilliant. My job is to know enough to understand who my experts are, give it to them, and listen to them. So, no.
I'm going to assume they meant computer networking, but I'm going to interpret it as human networking for the sake of a conversation.
Love that.
And then I would say correct. I think that human interaction and talking to other people and understanding their systems is an art and a thing you need to do. I used to, when I ran a consulting company, I had a whole training I would give on the art of elicitation. I gave the talk at TourCon San Diego some shit years ago, really fucking sick with the flu too, which I probably shouldn't have been in public. But and it's all about techniques and understanding how to interact with other people, how to get the information you want out of them, how to elicit the things that you need as a consultant. And it was taken from like law enforcement stuff and legal courtroom, but other techniques as well. And I think that's a hugely valuable, B, wildly not fully understood by people in the industry. And the control that you have with your language and the questions that you ask and how you engage people, to your point, like you should throw yourself on the pyre and be like, I actually don't know. Can you help me out? Even if you know, that's a valuable technique. And it is a technique like anything else, right? We talk to people even like at speakers at SchmooCon. This thing is a tool, right? When you speak on stage, you can use the microphone in different ways to get different effects with your voice to be able to communicate more effectively with the audience and get them to understand better. And so, understanding the power of your voice and the power of your interaction with other people as it pertains to your job in this industry is critically important. So I will misinterpret the question, but answer it in my own way, which is also a thing that they'll teach you in like media training, is answer the question that you wished you were asked, not the one you were actually asked. So that's what I did right there.
I mean, I think it's in the spirit of the chaos of the panel, right? That this is supposed to be unfettered and unadulterated, so we can do whatever the hell we want.
And I needed a moment because my initial reaction was, you're wrong. But
And that's fine.
having given myself a couple of seconds to think about it, you're right, but first off, great. I love Bruce's interpretation, and you used it properly by going, I don't know. I've got people in my network that do. That's great. But knowing some networking is going to be
Right.
super helpful. And the more you know, the better off you are. But I don't think you need to know it so long as you have people on your team that do and know enough to go out there and say, I don't know this. What is this?
Know enough, know enough as the GP to say, oh shit, you need to go to a specialist.
Yes.
I'm
Know
not-
enough to know what you don't know.
Exactly.
Right. So it's I love him or hate him, Donald Rumsfeld, getting some of the attention of at least the older folks in the room.
Yeah, if you know who that is,
If you know
get
who
your
that
colon
is and you
checked.
have an opinion about Donald Rumsfeld, you are of a certain age. He had the whole like unknown unknowns, and there's like the Rumsfeldian matrix of like known knowns, known unknowns, unknown knowns, and unknown unknowns, right? And the awareness that I think that you're talking about is like, I know there's a thing, networking. I know I'm not very good at it. It's an unknown to me, but I know those people there know it for me. Cool, you can leverage that, right? And being aware of those unknown knowns and the known unknowns is actually a very powerful thing for managing people.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with everything that everyone said. I think knowing networking helps. Is it an explicit requirement? It probably not. It really depends on your team size, and to the last point, like knowing when you don't know something and knowing when you should go ask for help. And I think that's one of the most valuable skills that someone can have is knowing what they don't know and knowing when to ask for help. I've seen so many people, consultants, staff, clients who just they don't know when to ask for help and they don't want to show, that, weakness almost of not knowing something. And I think it takes a stronger person to say that they don't know something than it does a person to act like they do.
And this is not to say that you don't want to self-teach the way we were talking about. And this is a really good moment for those of us who have self-taught in different areas. When you see somebody struggling with that and you have trouble, they're having trouble and you've been through it, be like, look, here's how you work through this. That being said, not everybody has to get to an expert level. So it is hard. There's that middle ground between letting someone futz at something themselves and letting them, especially at leadership level, say, all right, you're the expert. I trust you.
Thank you, Bruce. We have a peanut gallery comments. We're going to try to get a mic.
I think this question is indicative of a problem that people have. And that is that I get asked all the time, like, how do I get into security? And my first question is, what the fuck do you want to do in security? Right? They treat it as a monolith, but it's really not. Like, there's so many different sections of security and networking. Yes, it's great to have, especially if you're in a very technical part of security. If you're doing pen testing, if you're working in the SOC, if you're doing those sorts of things, having the understanding of that is very important. But like the folks working like compliance and risk and all these other areas that are very much less technical don't need that level of network understanding. And I think that's the problem is it is people look at security as one big thing and don't look at the different segments that make up this field, because it's more than just the monolith that it gets treated as.
Yeah, that's exactly, I think, where, and you can see this is a big thing for me, not just because of where I've come from. I was always a nerd, but yeah, whenever I hear the idea, well, I'm not a technical person. Well, you know what? Technically, I am a person. So what the heck? But I'm probably still adding something there. I think it really comes down to Bruce's comment about knowing what you don't know and choosing your experts.
I mean, I'll tie it back to some of the earlier questions and comments we had. I will say I have actually hired like someone from the postal office into a SOC before. They had no prior SOC experience, but they had the right thought process, the mindset. They interviewed fantastically despite having no experience. And I have to say, 8 years since I had that client hire that person, that is the highest performing person in that SOC. They've gone all the way from tier 1 to tier 3. So I think, there's something to be said for self-teaching. There's something to be said for repurposing skill sets. And there's something to be said from coming from different places, and you don't have to have that person. Definitely didn't have networking skill going into that role, right? But they wanted to learn it. They went and they self-taught, and they started getting all the different skills that they needed to go with that, right? They took this concept of like sorting mail in a mail room and put it into sorting events in a sim, which was really cool to watch, honestly. And they actually came up with use cases for that customer that a lot of people who had been doing security for years before that hadn't thought of, because they just didn't have some other experience that led them to that thought process.
Yeah. I mean, that's how I'm here, because somebody in this room right now said, look, I need somebody who knows rules, statutes, can read a rule set and help people figure out how to get in compliance. I'll teach you tech. And, several years later, for some reason, you people are listening to me on a panel.
So, this one's much hotter. Anyway, they're going to turn it down before I get too aggressive. So, Synopsys, which used to be a company, but they got bought by somebody who the fuck knows, had a paper a number of years ago that came out. It was like the 4 shapes of a CISO. And it was effectively like looking at the core skill sets of security leaders and where did they come from. And like there was like CISO as technology leader, CISO as financial overseer of like IT and security, CISO as risk arbiter, that kind of thing. And they did an analysis of like the strengths and weaknesses of each. And I think it's important to your point, understanding like strengths come from different places, from different backgrounds, and being able to leverage that in a cyber program. Cyber is weird in the sense like we deal with risk of all types, and oftentimes like totally unexpected ways. And AI as an example, like 3 years ago, we were not having weird, big, huge conversation about the impact of AI on like everything around us, and like you can't get away from it today, and we have to figure out how to manage the risk associated with it. And some of the people who are at the pointy end of that spear are not like, I've been doing AI my whole life and I have my doctorate in AI, right? It's like, I'm a creative person who can understand shit gets weird and I can help you manage that risk. And so I think that paper, as much as it was geared toward like shapes of CISOs and helping executive teams think about like who they want to hire, I think it actually in general, like you can think about it as the entire industry and like where can you draw strengths from to put people on the right problems inside your program.
All right. So with that, let's pick another topic. We've got plenty to pick from still. Ooh, this is actually a similar topic to one that we drew last year, but it has a new twist and a specific ask. And I think it's really good for the current hiring environment. Skills gap. What are 2 to 3 skills that you would recommend? It's very generic and open-ended, so you can pick whatever job you want.
In the current environment, I think farming, self-defense,
Ditch digging.
No. Well digging.
Well
digging.
Yeah, that's a good one too. Yeah.
If you're already soldering, just kick it up a notch. It's fine.
How about if we add the security disclaimer on that one?
Oh.
Same thing.
I think looking at the delta, I think there's like general things that you would want to be aware of, and I think that there's a few things that have come up in the last year. One, AI awareness in general, right? And we all have our opinions on the roles and whatever, but the reality is like there are risks and benefits, and teams can be made faster with it, and teams can also be made slower or more squirrely with it. One of the things that we do at work periodically is that some of the technical team will get together and just share like, here's what I've been doing with AI recently, and here's what's working and not working, right? And you'll find everyone's using tools differently. I was talking to some folks a couple weeks ago who were like trying to create like metrics for like how their teams were using AI, and I'm like, what? Like it's moving so fast and everyone's using it differently. Like you can't be prescriptive about how to use AI today because it'll literally be different in a month. Like stop. But instead, like, think about like, how can the current technologies facilitate and or harm us? How do we use that and going forward? I think there's value to that, right? And not to over rotate it on the buzzword side of things, because I think at least the shines come off of AI a bit. But at the very least, to be more aware and understand how to stir it in, I think is a valuable skill.
This was the question included job market, correct?
It did include job
All right,
market.
so I'm going to go back to networking. Lots of people have that as a skills gap, and this is the person-to-person networking. A lot of people could polish those skills up, get a little bit better at it, and that is invaluable job market-wise.
Yeah, I mean, I'll say, like, I used to be one of those crazy tech nerds that, like, when I started my career, I would shout ones and zeros across the room in hexadecimal to friends for shits and giggles because we could. And that did not get me a job, right?
What do you mean was?
Shh.
I'm in that chat.
um, we have a group chat, obviously. Shocker! The speakers have a group chat together. There's actually, between the four of us, there's probably like half a dozen. But
Oh, the three of them, they left me out. That's check my
you're
phone
in a
right
bunch
now.
of them. You're in a bunch of them.
Logic puzzle of how.
Oh,
many
he's gonna
people
check
are in
now.
how
He's gonna
many-
have to count.
Anyway,
Bruce, how many group chats were we in over the last
But
year?
you've evolved, is what you were saying before I distracted
What I was saying was, I definitely evolved. I learned to speak business, and that's what got me my career and where I am today. And there are so many brilliant people out there that are what I like to call the special kitties, right? Like, they're absolutely fantastic at their job, but they cannot speak to the business unit. They cannot advocate for themselves. They can't talk effectively about why what they found is interesting or different or scary, or how they solved a problem in a way that the company should care about. And closing that gap, I think, is definitely a skill that is worth having.
So you're saying don't be a pizza slot nerd? Those are the ones that you put them behind a door with a pizza slot in it?
Yes.
You put the pizzas in, the deliverables come out, but you don't let them talk to anybody.
For lack of a better term, yes. I definitely, there are a couple of firms that I know that have created a fantastic environment for, the pizza slot nerds, right? Where they have a dev team that just does doc management, so you spit out vulns, the doc team makes it look pretty and converts to business land, and then the client is happy. Not everyone's fortunate enough to have that, and you definitely lose some of that value along the way. I once got into an argument with a doc team because they changed the color coding on a deliverable I did that had very specific color coding to map to common colors in a framework to make it cross-referenceable. And it drove me up a wall, personally speaking, because it made it so much harder to cross-reference, going back to our compliance standards, the compliance framework that was already mind-numbing enough to read on its own. So we at least added color coding so you could see, yes, this corresponds to, this primary control set, and this corresponds to this primary control set. Red means testing, blue means defensive tools, like just simple things, right?
But it didn't match the brand style guide.
It did. Well, actually, it did. I was very picky about that. I am evil, and I have stolen marketing materials before, gotten the brand management slide deck so that they cannot complain about that.
I feel that. I mean, I think to your point too, it's not just different skills. It's different skills about different abilities, the ability to be different people. Okay? When I was in a courtroom, I didn't talk or look like this. I've had business conversations with Guardians and Cosmos where I'm talking to Christian Nicholson, and it's not some weird, about face, but it's a different thing. We talk about bringing your whole self. No, don't bring your whole self to anything. I mean, maybe a party with your best friends.
No, there's some weird parts of me that I'm not bringing here.
That's it. Like, you don't want me to bring my whole self to talking to a Fortune 500 CEO. Really, you don't. So not just having those individual people skills, but figuring out, this is where I do this thing. This is the thing that goes like this. I'm not telling anybody to lie, and I'm not telling anybody to be not authentic. But you can have different faces for different situations that will serve you well, and still be, and still be able to look yourself in the mirror.
Yeah,
it's not easy.
There's a time and place for everything. Read the room, know your audience, relate to your audience, know what they're interested in, what they care about, and meet them halfway, right? Like if you are talking to an accounting firm and you're trying to explain, Entra ID compromise, like talking in tech to a legal team or an accounting team, it's not going to make sense. Related to their accounting portfolio, to their spreadsheets, to the book, to things that they know, meet them halfway, right? You're going to get so much far. So that was great grammar right there.
I wasn't going to say anything, but I surely thought about it.
Y'all
I-
talk pretty one day, friend.
I had a comment because I know Bruce would say something otherwise. So I'm surprised I didn't get called out this time. All right. I know who submitted this one, and I know that it's a very passionate topic. And I'm going to have to reword it to be politically correct. I know this is a hot take paddle. Why is Oracle so fill in your blank?
I cannot speak to that in any way, shape, or form without getting fired. Don't work for Oracle.
Narfi also can't speak to that without getting fired right now.
Oh, well, I can.
Just remember that your HR department's in the room.
Yeah, my HR department's in the room. HR department's boss is on stage, so we're just going to balance it all out.
We went there.
Yeah. Oracle is a company that's been able to rest on its existence and contracts and things it already has, right? And it can make wildly bad decisions in the face of 99% of the population, but otherwise a good decision for the 1% of the population that pays it all its money, right? They are self-interested. They are interested in the perpetuation of the clients that they have. The times when they've left that strike zone, shit has gone weird for them, and they're terrible at it, right? Java. Okay, cool. Like there's all kinds of things that just they were not good stewards of and basically killed, right? They're like, you give them a puppy and Oracle is just that thing that's just filled with poison and the puppy dies. So like, I wonder why that happened. Except all their customers are people that thrive on poison. Like, oh, that's why. Yeah, that was bold. Sorry.
Tough but fair.
Yeah, and the culture, even at the executive level, is like that. I've met a number of executives that have worked at Oracle, like senior executives on the team there, and they're their own people, right? And they are looking out for themselves. They're looking out for the biggest customers they have, period. And as outsiders and as consumers, we're not on their radar, right? We do not matter to their bottom line. So props. They're capitalists at their core, and they've been very appropriate at that, and good stewards of their shareholders' money. They're just not great as part of society. And TikTok, yeah, and now they're going to own part of TikTok. God bless Larry Ellison. May he not eat any bad food.
There's the unadulterated Bruce I know and love. Yeah, unfortunately, like I said, 3 of us can't comment on that legally at the moment. Imply your reasons. Fun fact, 2 of us work for the same company. 1 of us doesn't.
Fun fact. Like, all right.
Ooh, we have another good one. Passkeys, are they here to stay or are they just a fad? I know Bruce has opinions on passkeys. I want to hear all of them.
Passkeys are one of the most confusing pieces of technology that we were all really excited about, right? Like, I cannot... It's fucking mind-boggling. Like, I'm in a number of Slacks where, like, one of them was with, like, Bob Lord and people who, like, really, 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 really like passkeys, and then a number of, like, really good CISOs who are like, I literally don't understand what's going on with them, right? It's weird. It's hard to manage. Like, I get what it accomplishes from a, like, phishing resilience perspective, but every other aspect of a passkey is just weird, right? It's hard to use. It, like, locks you onto a fucking system. It does all this weird shit. How do you manage it? How do you revoke it? Like, whatever. I don't know. But every goddamn thing, every time I log in, it's like, oh, I can do passkey. I'm like, shut up. Yeah. Like, no, stop it. Like, they all jump on it, right? Heidi's freaking
Like a
workstation
clippy turf
has
war.
like 3 different password managers on it for reasons, and it's a fight. Every time she goes to log into things, there's like all these modals all pop up. They're all trying to help. I'm like, hit escape, and then all of them go away. Like, how do I log in now? Like, reload the fucking page. And like, we just keep doing this until like, you have to click on the little window underneath the big window. Like, click, nope, that one right there. Okay, cool. And then it's like, oh, do you want a passkey? I'm like, shut the fuck up. Like, it is unbelievable, the battle that happens on client sides. Don't confuse them even more.
Someone somewhere right now is writing a paper on how great an idea it was with such a terrible execution.
I would agree empirically with that. Like it was great in theory. The execution is just lacking, and the execution components that people don't hate have security weaknesses in them, like the browser-based ones that are just throwing things around through a standard connection. You know, like KeyPass had that feature years and years and years ago, and it was a whole thing because it was just unencrypted.
I think something was asking me the other day, does it want to store my passkey in the cloud? And I was like, wait, I think you've
Doesn't that
misinterpreted the
deplete the
purpose of this
purpose?
whole thing.
Right.
But
And it's not portable. Like 10 years ago, can someone give PW a mic? You got one?
Yeah, I just wanted to say you should not abstract security so that it seems seamless to me and doesn't happen. When I'm logging into something, I want to know I'm logging into it. I want to know I'm providing a secret. And when I'm not logged into it, I want that to be very obvious. Making it sort of seamless and in the background and go away is not an improvement.
Right, which means the average user needs it more. No, the average user needs to at least put a password on so that they can, or some sort of login so that they can turn around and think like,
Can someone
oh,
give
this is
Rogue a mic?
important. That's fair.
Thank you,
Not
Heidi.
an impediment, but that 1 second to say like, oh, this information must be important. This is my bank. I probably don't want the dude behind me in Starbucks to see this.
Does anybody in this room actually think a business user should have any reason to know anything other opportunity, cost, and risk? Like, why should they know anything about technology? To your point about the login being seamless, being a bad thing, why? Point blank, we should not have any interaction with the business user where they're not going to go to it and have to say, hey, this is a security layer, because that affects ease of access. That actually has business side implications. We need to create an environment that they can do the stupid shit that they're going to do safely.
That's the key. I don't see
the
there
key.
being an environment where they can do the stupid shit safely.
so yeah. So
All right.
uh, I was just going to say, like, I think, like, to get to the passkey thing, I think one of the challenges is it's tied to a device. It's a weird user. There's a lot of weirdness about passkeys. And I think it's confusing to both the people that run the infrastructure and the people that use the infrastructure. I think to your point, I agree with you. You want to it to be as transparent as possible, but I also agree with Bob. And I think for me, like, one of the best use cases or one of the best patterns I've seen is, like, if you're a 1Password user, I'm not here to pimp 1Password, but you can have, like, your MFA token in 1Password, you get everything stored there. And when you log in, you'll see it, fill it in, click, filled in, click, filled in, click. You don't have to do anything. You literally don't interact. Like, I log into Okta every day with 1Password, and all I do is, like, touch ID, it unlocks 1Password, and then I see the flow, and I'm like, no, I have logged in. I see positive affirmation. I logged in. And as a user, I didn't have to do shit except touch my keyboard and my index finger, right? Hugely powerful. And I get so annoyed when, like, it doesn't work because some developers made some weird thing that, like, doesn't allow cut and paste or whatever the fuck's going on. I'm like, no. Like, anyway, sorry. Oh, there's a thing in the back.
So trying to make something idiot proof is never going to work because they keep building better idiots. It is, and I stole that from somebody, I'll be the first to admit. It's great to be able to understand, hey, I logged into something, or, transparent. There is a balancing act between the both of them. Case in point, my father is 88 years old. For the last 15 years, there is an annual fight on how to install TurboTax, which requires the putting in of a password.
Oh God! You said. So I legitimately was sitting at a bar in Tokyo, and this guy sat down next to me like 3 weeks ago, and he goes, and we started having a conversation about what we both do, and he goes, "Yeah, my 80-year-old grandfather just built a finance management application for himself using OpenAI. Don't you think that's awesome?" And he's just staring at me, smiling, and I'm just like mortified, and I'm like, do you not see what's wrong? So we start sitting, me and a friend start explaining to him what's wrong, and he's just smiling with this happy face looking at us. He's like, yeah, but he's 80. Don't you think it's cool that he like built this financial management application all by himself? And I'm like, do you think it's gonna be cool when he loses all his retirement money? Because I don't think so.
Has the part of you that died inside when he told you that started to grow back yet?
No, it hasn't.
Never will.
Right. We've
I don't
got
think it
like
ever
just
will.
a few more minutes, Cosmos. We got one more question over here.
All right.
That guy.
Yeah, so
guy.
I've got kind of a difficult question. Well, first off, if anybody wants to talk about passkeys, I can sit upstairs and waste 3 or 4 hours of your time on the technicals. But
Please do. I need a break.
passkeys are probably one of the most user-friendly innovations in authentication standards for the last 30 years. And what I'm hearing from veterans, Gwyd, Narf, Bruce, and PW, and Christian, is that we are, not to toot our own horns, world-class experts, and we're questioning, what are passkeys? What are best ways of working with passkeys? So the question I ask for the panel is, looking out at what you know about the future and security trends, do you believe that there is a concept of a user-friendly security interface at all?
I think we already have it. We have shit like Touch ID, Face ID, things like that, which are not perfect, but your grandma understands. Or if I think I
Look,
jumped in on you.
It's, we've said a lot of things kind of negative about passkeys, but the one thing I like about them is for the average user, they're easy, but you're still doing a thing. So like on the drive here, Nouse, how many different kinds of speed bumps did we see? We had the big crazy tables that you got to slow down way below the speed limit for. You're going to scrape the bottom of your car. And then you've got the nice ones that, if you're going the speed limit, it doesn't matter, right? And I think passkeys, as far as user access, ease of use, while still letting you know you're doing a thing, passkeys are as close to that nice, smooth speed bump that doesn't do anything to you unless you're going well over the speed limit. Do I think they're perfect? No. Do I fully understand why they are the way they are? Also, no. Could they be better? Absolutely. But I think they're as close as we've gotten to that perfect speed bump so far.
I think that the reality is, like, we've really, as an industry, rotated heavily on authentication as like a thing to stop bad outcomes. And the reality is, like, there is a lot more to these complex systems that could be done to make users safer, that don't require like as hard a shell on the front end of the thing to make sure things don't go wrong. A better view of authorization, a better view of trust relationships, a better view of integrity and passing integrity information back and forth behind the scenes to stop bad transactions from happening before they're committed, all these kind of things. There's some of it's foundational computer science work that we've been researching since the 70s. Some of it's failed startups that have died. I mean, there's a lot of things, but I think that in the coming 10 years, the best innovations around securing the user base are things that the users don't see, and they aren't just weird authentication. Apologies for calling passkeys weird, but weird authentication tricks that we try to do to make the lives a little bit easier and ignoring the underlying systemic issues that we've created in our industry.
All right. Well, I want to thank everyone for attending. Thanks. You've been a wonderful audience. Thank you so much for the participation. I do love a good panel and a good talk where we actually have discussion. Big thank you again to our panelists for participating. We hope to see you again next year. I'm sure we'll end up running this again next year. So thank you again for having us. And last but not least, I know he's not in the room right now, but a big thanks to Russ for putting JawnCon together and making it possible again this year. And thank you for everyone who's watching the live stream. So without further ado, Heidi, I'll turn it back over to you.
All right, I think we're on lunch break for the next hour, so go eat, y'all.